Hello, Year 10. Mr. Milligan here. I'm going to get you started on this new topic. Okay, hopefully you've all had a good rest and a good break last week and a chance to maybe to catch up on some of the genetic stuff that we've done over the last 6 or so weeks. Okay, of course, when we see you again face to face, there'll be opportunity to go back over some of that stuff. So if you are sitting a little confused or unsure, then just take a note of it. Okay, and we'll certainly be happy to do that. Some of this stuff, of course, might well appear on a summer exam, okay, in due course in May or June. So I say it's important that you keep up with it. It's important that you understand it, and so don't let it go. All right, if you're unsure about anything, do ask us. Okay. But we're going to make a beginning onto this, our new topic. Okay, it will carry us through for a few weeks, pretty much to Easter, which is 5 weeks away, and it's called Sensational Senses. Okay, so you have a pupil booklet. I hope you've had a chance to print that out, and alongside it here, we've got a little PowerPoint that will give you some of the details. So I'll just take your way through it. I think you're familiar with this, those that get Mrs. Young and Mrs. Montgomery too. Okay, so we're into page 1 here, and how do we detect the environment? Okay, and so you can see from the PowerPoint slide on the right that your answers basically can just fit in. So the first one, you need to know what is going on in your world around you. Your nervous system, okay, is what is going to allow you to interact there. Okay, and that's your first one. My handwriting is not the best, and you would struggle, I think, even when I'm writing on a board, never mind writing on a screen here. Okay, so that's your first one. The next one allows you to react to your surroundings to coordinate your behavior. Changes in your environment are known as stimuli. Okay, that's plural for a stimulus being one, and that's something that you're going to react to pretty much, and we'll come across more of those in due course. And these changes are detected by cells called receptors. Okay, so they receive a stimulus, okay, and they're going to change it into a useful form that your body can make sense of, and that quite often is an electrical impulse, okay, which will then get taken to your brain or spinal cord and processed and sent along its way. Receptor cells are usually found clustered together in special sense organs, and these are the things you learn way down in P2 and so on, where we've got your five real senses, okay, so eyes and skin, etc. And you have different types of receptor cells that are sensitive to different stimuli, right? So that should be pretty straightforward enough for that first section. Now, this then picture, of course, is the main organs that are going to detect stimulus, okay? I think we're all pretty okay with the idea that the eyes are sensitive to light. Okay, so they have special cells, rods and cones, that are designed to change light, different intensities of light, different wavelengths of light, okay, into an electrical signal that goes to your brain, and then it gets interpreted into a picture. Okay, your ears then have cells that are sensitive to sound. Okay, it's a little eardrum that vibrates back and forward when sound enters the ear canal, and again that's converted into electrical signal going to your brain, and then the degree of vibration really determines how loud the sound is, and also the pitch. Okay, and you might remember some of that from I think year 9. Okay, you have then the tongue and nose, okay, quite often work together, sensitive to chemicals, okay. The nose, of course, we would regard with smell, and the tongue for taste. But you'll notice a little bit of overlap, okay. If you've ever eaten food when you have a heavy cold, you'll notice it doesn't quite taste the same, and that's usually because your back of your nose is blocked, so some of the kind of vapors that come off your food when you eat it don't go up into your nose, therefore the taste isn't quite what you think. So taste is the tongue predominantly, but your nose is involved. The other main one then is skin, and skin covers a whole lot of different stimuli. Okay, you can see it's sensitive to touch, to pressure, to pain, and to temperature. Okay, and that allows us to interact with the environment around us. So on down here then, we have some animals have one sense that is more highly developed than others. Dogs, for example, have a very good sense of smell. Bats have a very highly developed hearing, which they use like radar to guide them when they're flying. The birds of prey have good vision for seeing the animals they feed on. Okay, I was out feeding some birds the other day, cutting some wood, and a sparrowhawk which are very rare. You don't often see them. Like a small bird of prey came flying down and was trying to take out a few coal tits that were close to where I was, and it just landed about 10 feet away, gave me a quick look, and then took off. And that thing obviously would have spotted those little birds from quite a height above. Okay, so it was an unusual instance, and I don't think it necessarily happen again. But again, just another example of the great vision that birds of prey have. Okay, the senses in humans are all quite well developed. We are reasonably good across the board, but not really as highly developed in any one quarter than some other animals. Okay, so where would you find these ones? Pretty straightforward. A loud noise. Hopefully you're okay with the ear. Touching a hot oven, okay, would be the skin, and then the strong perfume would be the nose. Okay, and you can scribble those in. Little fact here, did you know some male moths are so sensitive to chemicals that they can detect the scent of a female from several kilometers away? That's more than they can follow the scent trail and find her. So that's just a little interesting fact about some moths and some animals. Same with you. You've probably read things about sharks and blood. They can sense a drop of blood in the ocean from a few miles away as well and follow it to the source. Once a receptor detects a stimulus, the information in the form of electrical impulse passes along the nerve cells or neurons, and that's possibly a new word for you. Okay, a neuron is like a single cable that's going to carry a signal. Okay, sometimes they're bundled together to form what we call a nerve fiber. Okay, which is like a bundle of neurons, right? So it's a bit like when you look at the wiring of an appliance at home. You have a couple of yeah, kind of wires within a outer um, kind of bigger cable, okay, and one's obviously the live, the neutral, the earth, and so on. So the neurons are the equivalent of those, okay, the individual sort of wrapped up wires, whereas the nerve fiber, okay, is the whole bundle of them together. So these are usually found in bundles known as nerves. The impulse travels along the neuron until it reaches the central nervous system, or the CNS. Okay, and the CNS is made up of two things, right? It's the brain and then the spinal cord. So what's in your head and then running down your back. The neurons which carry impulses from the receptors in the sense organ are called sensory. So the ones that come from your senses, okay, they are picking up the stimulus through the sensory organs. So it's going to be your skin, your eyes, your ears, your nose, okay, your tongue, and they're going to carry the signal from there to your brain or spinal cord. So sensory is kind of the first one that's involved. Now that gets us to the bottom then of page 2. What's going to happen then is your brain then gets all this information. Okay, it can be overload at times, so it's going to take it from these sensory neurons. It then has to coordinate all of this. Okay, it has to make sense of it, has to decide what gets passed on and where does it go, what's going to happen with this information. So it's going to send it out along special cells. These cells carry information from the central nervous system to the rest of your body. These cells are called motor neurons. All right, so they're going to take the information and do something with it. And they carry the impulse to make the right parts of your body respond. Now, the place where it's going is called an effector, okay, or an effector organ. And there are really only two destinations that motor neurons go. They're either going to go to a muscle, i.e., going to cause a movement, or they're going to go to a gland. And the gland will release a chemical into your blood more times than not, but not necessarily always, and you will find that it will bring across a hormonal change. Okay, your muscles therefore contract if they're given a signal allowing the movement. Okay, so if you get somebody beeps their horn as you walk down the street and you jump, okay, that is your ears picked up the sound, it went to your brain decided to send it to your leg and arm muscles, and that caused you to jump and you got a bit of a fright. Okay, so that's an example of your muscles. Or if you touch something hot, you'll find that your arm or finger or whatever moves away quickly. All right, and we'll look more about the reflexes of those in another lesson. The glands would be an example of maybe you smell some nice cooking, some baking going on, and your nose picks up the nice scent. It sends along the sensory neuron to your brain. Your brain then decides, well, I think we're going to get ready to eat something here, and sends a signal along the motor neuron to your salivary glands, and you start to salivate. You start to produce a little bit more saliva, expecting some food. Okay, another one would be again with that horn that you've just got a fright from at the same time as jumping. Okay, you'll find that your brain has sent a message to your adrenal glands, which are just above your kidneys, and they are possibly releasing, therefore, some adrenaline into your blood, and that is getting you pumped up, ready to run away or to put up a fight. Okay, so those are the responses really. So when it comes to motor neurons, there are only two, and it would be good to highlight that. Okay, that they're really only muscles or glands are the destination. Just to finish this, your glands respond by producing chemicals called hormones, which will travel around in the blood. So they will cause a reaction as well, usually a slower reaction, okay, not as quick as a muscle contraction, but what you'll find is it stays in your system longer, okay? So it's one reason why it takes a little bit of time to kind of calm down after a fright. Certainly if you've been kind of watching something towards bedtime and you've kind of got a wee bit frightened or a little bit pumped up, okay, you might find you're not sleeping terribly well for a while, and that's partly because you've adrenaline going through your system, and it's keeping you on edge. Okay, so we have this little summary here then, down on this page here. Let me see. Yep, and that will you've got that in travel all the way around the body in the blood. Okay, the way your nervous system works can be summarized as this. Okay, we have a receptor. So remember that was your sensory organs. Okay, so skin, nose, your tongue, your eye, okay, your ear. And within that receptor, you're going to find then there's a sensory neuron that's going to change the stimulus, whether it's heat, whether it's something sharp, pain, whether it's going to be good smell or too much light or whatever. It's going to change it into an electrical signal that's going to send it through your neurons, through a sensory neuron to the coordinator, which is your central nervous system. Okay, and that is then going to decide where it goes. So it's going to go down the right motor neuron to an effector, which is your muscle or gland that's going to be affected. Okay, and that's what this little picture is here. So we have, oh, let me go back, see if I can get that back up again. Okay, so this is what you have in your book. You can see this is a weird looking cell, but it is a cell nonetheless. Okay, you all your things you'd normally expect. You have a cell membrane around the outside. You've got cytoplasm up the middle. You've got a nucleus. Okay, so don't get too worried about it. It is a cell. It just has these weird branch-like structures, okay? And the signal comes in through these branches from either receptors, okay, taking pain or signal. This is a motor neuron, okay? So that's the last one that's taking the message to a muscle or gland. So what as these are going to be connected to other neurons in your brain or spinal cord, okay, and lots of different access points there, so maybe lots of little neurons all attaching to that, bringing signals from different directions. And they're called dendrites, the small ones. Dendrons are slightly bigger ones. So they bring the signal in. Okay, if I can make this one maybe a little bit bigger. And let's see, and we'll get a little draw on this. So the signals will come in here, okay, through these structures, and it will come past this thing called the cell body, okay, where the nucleus is. All right, so that's all through the cytoplasm, and then it always heads off down this long structure called an axon, and the axon is always away, takes the signal away. My handwriting combined with this pen isn't great. Okay, let me try that again. So that's how to remember. So that's the direction of the signal. Okay, and it's going to end up going to a number of nerve endings, and these are going to be connected to muscles, okay, or a gland, and that's going to stimulate a response then. Okay, so the motor neurons will be running from your spine down your arm, okay, going to your biceps, triceps, finger muscles, down your leg, the quads, calves, etc. Okay, or else internally into, say, some of your gland structures like your adrenal glands, salivary glands, pancreas, and other places where they're going to cause a reaction. Okay, so that's that little picture. Now you'll notice here yours doesn't have it, but mine does a little YouTube link. So what we'll do is we'll post that up separately for you, a little video just giving you a summary of the physiology of all of this. Okay, and then there's a second one that I'll post up for you as well, which is kind of an overview of the nervous system, particularly with the spinal cord and how it works. So here we have a kind of maybe a new one introduced. Okay, so here's our stimulus, which would be light. The eye is going to then allow light in, it hits the back, is changed into this electrical signal through the sensory neuron, okay, and it goes to the brain, the central nervous system, as we said. Now, the little thing to maybe allow for here, though, is that there is a third neuron which is always found in the brain or the spinal cord. It's never found anywhere else, and it's in this case it's called the relay neuron. So I would highlight that. So we have sensory, relay, and then the third one is motor. Okay, so I'd highlight those three. Now you'll find that the sensory and motor never really get called anything else. Okay, so sensory and motor you'll come across time and time again. The relay one though, you might find that in some cases it's called intermediate. Okay, and the video I think refers to it as intermediate. Or in other cases association. It has three possible answers. Okay, so intermediate, association, or relay, but it's all referring to that same structure. That is the link between the sensory coming in and the motor going out of the central nervous system. So it's basically what your brain and spinal cord is made up of, is a whole big bundle of relay or intermediate or association neurons. Okay, I probably like the intermediate, okay, or the association name, and it's just because you get a nice mnemonic, okay, from it. You can remember the order, so sensory and then intermediate followed by motor and sim. Okay, or what you can get of course is SAM, sensory association motor, and that just helps to remember the order of things. Okay, once you go with relay, then obviously it doesn't make a mnemonic quite so easy, SRM. Okay, but if as long as you're getting one of those right, SIM or SAM or SRM, that's just the order in which you try and remember they fire and they function. Okay, right, we're on to a little thing on touch then. Okay, now what we'll try and do, let me just get this, see if I can get this sorted a little bit. Right, there's a little experiment. Right, we probably don't need this actually now. I can make this a bit bigger. Okay, and it's this idea of trying to investigate a little bit on touch. Okay, so what you're going to do is touch is very important, especially for people who have slight difficulties. All you have, we all have touch or pressure receptor cells in our skin. Our hairs are attached to nerves, and hairs too can detect when something is touching them. Some areas in our skin have more pressure sensitive receptor cells than others. Our fingertips, lips, and tongue are particularly sensitive. Okay, that's one reason why it's very painful when you get those areas hurt and damaged. Okay, as babies, we learn a lot about the world by picking up things and putting them in our mouths, and that's because it's stimulating the brain, a lot of signals being fired. So this one does suggest working in pairs, and obviously in a school setting that would be okay. You're at home, and unless you have a sibling to hand, you might need to call on maybe a parent or somebody in the house with you here, and they could do this with you. The idea is that you are going to open up a paper clip. So I hope you're able to get your hands on one of those. So as you've got two little prongs about half a centimeter apart, 5 millimeters. Okay, just enough that it's definitely 2 points rather than 1 point. Okay, and the idea is you're going to use that to press down on the skin in certain places, and you're going to see if your brain can work out is it 1 or 2 points of contact. Okay, now the more receptor cells that you have in a certain area, the higher the chance you've been able to discern between 2 points. Okay, whereas somewhere where there's only a few receptor cells, less of them, then you might only feel the kind of point of contact is a single point, when max effect it could be 2 points. Okay, so the idea is you're going to test different parts of your skin. Now, if you can obviously see what's happening, then you know it's one or two. So there has to be a little bit of unknown effect here. Okay, you basically can't see what is being pressed on your skin. You look away, and it's one reason why you can't really do it yourself. Okay, because you can obviously then work out what's being pressed on. So the idea is that the other person, okay, unknown to the one that's been experimented on, basically touches the skin lightly. Okay, it should be touched 10 times. All right, with either one or both points. So done quite randomly. Try not to do a predictable pattern, and then vary the touching so the person can guess whether it was one or both points. And then you record a little bit and onto data and so on. Now, the person who's doing the touching with the paper clip really needs to record, is it one or two? Okay, so as they're able to compare your answers with theirs, and you'll see as you go on down, there's a table here. Okay, so 10 times on your finger, and this is the number of ones actually. So these first columns you would fill in the person who's doing the touching with the paperclip would fill in whether it was one or two, and then they would record your answer, and you could just close your eyes and call out whether you think it's one or two, and then you just collate over here at the far side the actual number, okay, that is going to be. And so that's the places you can check: fingertip, back of hand, lower arm, cheek, and neck. Okay. And then to finish up, there's a few questions here. Which area of the skin give the most correct scores? Okay. And you might predict that possibly they have the most highly sensitive part, okay, with the most receptor cells, would arguably give you maybe the most accurate answer. Is there any reason why these parts of skills should detect more accurately? Well, we've kind of alluded to that. And which area give the least correct score? And is there any reason why this part of the skin should not detect so accurately? So it's all about how many receptor cells are there to pick up the information, okay? And it's partly it's kind of the equivalent of, I suppose, pixels on your screen. Okay, the more pixelated a screen is, the kind of sharper the image, the greater the difference between 2 points. And it's a wee bit here. We don't have, in places we don't have very many receptor cells. Okay, so it's hard to discern whether which exact point of the skin is being pressurized. Okay, but once you have a lot, like fingertips and lips and other places, then you'll find that you will be able to discern the 2 points. Okay, so that's a little experiment you can do, and that would take you through the end. We're going to leave temperature for next day. Okay, that'll be picked up by another member of the biology department to run you through that. But that's a little thing you can try, and then we'll probably say put up some of those video clips for you as well. Okay, I hope that makes a little bit of sense, and we'll catch you again soon. Okay, bye.